I'm just going to introduce you. Sex is a big part of life. I mean, it created us, and love is a big part of life, and pleasure is a big part of life. And so many of us don't know what that's like. We don't have a good relationship with it. It's been skewed by society and other things. So I am really excited to introduce to you Tiffany, who is going to share with us her wisdom. She has entice.me, and she's going to talk about the orgasmic you in her masterclass today and really help you to step into a beautiful relationship with your sexuality. So I just saw in the chat that it is staticky. I tried to fix that. Tiffany didn't tell me it was staticky before, so I thought it was fixed. Neither did my client this morning. It wasn't?
It was fine earlier.
Oh, thank you so much for being here, Tiffany. Thank you for being a teacher at your own university. It is so amazing. I'm so excited for the class. So, yeah, tell us about you and your class, and I'm going to pop off.
Well, welcome. I'm Tiffany Yelverton. I'm the founder and chief sexinista of Entice Me and your orgasm guru. And today is all about you and finding out more about the power of orgasms. So have you ever met someone and been drawn to them and you didn't really know why? He or she might not have even been the most attractive person in the room, but yet they held themselves differently. Napoleon Hill discussed the power of transmutation, and the people that were most highly sexual are the most powerful individuals in the world. We're going to be talking a lot about climax today, and it is letting go of the involuntary, being rocketed into a completely different arena. It can just blow your mind, and in the brain, it acts kind of like a seizure. You may lose all control of your body. One of my favorite stories is when Marilyn Monroe was walking down Fifth Avenue with a colleague, and she had on a headscarf and just a simple dress, and they were just walking and chatting, and her colleague couldn't figure out why the most famous woman in the world was walking down Fifth Avenue and no one was approaching her. What was going on? And Marilyn just coyly looked at him and said, "Would you like to see Marilyn now?" And she just pulled her chest up, put her shoulders back, lifted her head up high, and just started to sashay down the street. And then everyone knew it was Marilyn. It is about sexual confidence. It is about holding yourself differently when you have the power of your own orgasms. When we have an orgasm with a partner, the oxytocin, one of the main neurochemicals that is released into our body, creates a bond with the other person. When we create our own orgasms, that oxytocin circulates through our body and creates self-love and confidence. Now, the difference between men and women in the amount that they orgasm, or self-pleasure, I should say, is that men say that they self-pleasure about 35% more than women. And if you look at the gender pay gap, it's about 20 to 30 cents on every dollar. I believe that that is because men have that confidence that a lot of women don't. When we actually have an orgasm, it blocks a pain receptor in our brain that allows us to push through and do things that we might not have normally done, like ask for the money that we deserve for a contract, negotiate a pay raise, ask for the position. In fact, Hewlett-Packard did a study that women won't apply for an upper management position unless they are 100% qualified for a job or for the position, and men will apply if they're even 62% qualified for the job. So today we're going to talk about all the benefits of orgasms, the different kinds of orgasms that you can have, and how that can affect your life. Self-pleasure is really your path to feeling sexy, powerful, and fulfilled without outside influences. Learning the art of self-pleasure empowers you to have better communication with yourself and allows you to tell your partner what you need and what you desire. And it really minimizes codependency and reliance on another person. I've gone through this multiple times in my life where I was codependent on another person, but I'm going to talk about the benefits today. Just know that I've been through this and I know how powerful it is. For the over 25 years, I've been studying orgasms and how sex affects our lives, and I want to share that with you. So when we have an orgasm, we talked a little bit about the gender pay gap, but I'm going to give you some of the other benefits. The chemicals released into the brain and body make us feel happier, healthier, and more confident. Women who have a healthier attitude towards sex and are sexually assertive are closer to men in the gender pay gap, like we just talked about. Increasing orgasms from one a month to one a week equals actually the happiness quotient of about $50,000 a year. One study showed that people who masturbated 4 times a week versus once a week had a 3.2% higher paycheck. So let's talk about some of the other benefits why we're here today. The one, right now, especially in this time in our life, know that orgasms and sexual activity boost your immune system. Sexual activity increases your body's natural immunoglobulin A, which is an enzyme that makes you feel more resilient and resistant to colds, flus, and other illnesses. So if you want to do anything to fight off coronavirus right now, have an orgasm. It releases stress in our body. It improves blood flow. The flow of blood and to the genitals increases during sex, carrying fresh oxygen and replenishing antibacterial properties. And it strengthens the cardiovascular system. Regular sexual activity can reduce heart-related diseases by over half. So in one study in Europe, that people who had 3 orgasms or more a week had 50% less heart disease than people who didn't. That is a huge amount. And also, you get natural pain relief. Symptoms of migraines, PMS, arthritis can all be relieved by the release of oxytocin. It's an actual natural opiate with analgesic properties. So that, honey, I've got a headache excuse is really the opposite. It's really, having an orgasm is one of the only things that actually will get rid of a migraine. Orgasms help you sleep better. The drop in blood pressure releases natural sedatives that helps you sleep and stabilize sleep patterns. We have improved appearance. So that attraction that I mentioned at the beginning, that really, like, I don't know why I'm drawn to that person. When we have an orgasm, endorphins are released into the body and into the bloodstream that actually boosts collagen production, which helps us have less fine lines, wrinkles, and cellulites. It's also a natural calorie burner. And so that healthy, like after sex glow is not a myth. It's really, our skin looks so much better with the blood flow and the collagen. Plus, you'll get elevated mood and feelings of well-being. It helps alleviate depression, and it boosts your ability to have intimacy and perception of your own body. So what I've really found with my life is that I used to weigh 100 pounds less than I do now and thought I was fat. You know, 98% of women have some kind of body image issue. When I orgasm on a regular basis, I feel so much more love for my body. And even though I weigh a lot more, I feel so confident in my own skin, and I attract amazing, sexy lovers. The next thing that I would like to discuss with you, because a lot of us never learn this, is what are the female parts of anatomy? And very little research goes into female pleasure. And that's why we don't know a whole lot. And if we don't know our own parts, we can't share that with our partner. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the diagram is here on the page, but also I have a puppet that we're going to use to show you where things are anatomically. So this is your vulva area. The vagina is actually just the canal here in the middle, or as you would see here in the screen. So we've got the clitoris up here, and my light's a little off there, but then you have the urethra and the vaginal opening. Then you have some perineal tissue, and then down here you would have the anus. So these are the labia, or the inner lips. These are the outer lips. This is the clitoral hood. Now, we see this on the outside as the clitoris, right? That's what we think it is. This is actually a full-size anatomical replica of a clitoris. And there's actually 2 more legs that go around the back and hook into the sacrum in the back of the body. So we see this little bit, but all of this is clitoris. All these 2 bulbs, these outer legs. So if you think about if it was on the body, all this is clitoral tissue as well. It's a bundle, you know, this little tip, the glans, has 8,000 nerve endings. And it is just designed for pleasure. So you've got all this tissue. Just think of all that pleasure that you could have. Now, we've got the vaginal opening, and the vaginal tissue on the outside is very similar to the nipples and the clitoris. And then if you think about on the inside, we've got a few things. I change over to this new other side view so that you can see where things are. So we've got the clitoris, and if you think about where the nerves would gather on the inside of the body, that is where the G-spot is. It's a cluster of spongy tissue located on the top vaginal wall. So if you're laying down, you put your fingers in and kind of do a come hither motion towards your belly button, about 1 to 3 inches on the top wall of your vagina. That's going to be where the G-spot is. And it's a cluster of little spongy tissue. You're going to notice that it is you'll feel the smooth walls of the vagina, and then you'll feel a little like spongier, different texture. It's where the texture changes. Now we're going to talk about these other places in the vagina that have a lot of nerve endings. So most of the vaginal walls are pretty firm. They're supported by muscle tissue, and there's not a lot of nerve endings. But there are a few places on the back of the cervix, and I'm going to see if I can get a pointer here so you can see. Okay, so right here's so what we've talked about is we've got the clitoral glands, we've got the urethra, and then we have the vaginal opening. Your G-spot's going to be right about here. So if you think about, here's clitoris, inside G-spot. You've inside here, go back up, you've got your cervix here, the opening to the uterus, and then you have a spot here on the front, which is called the anterior fornix, or the A spot. It's very close to the cervix, and it responds well to pressure. And then at the back, which is a little bit more difficult to access, but when you can access that, it is the most amazing full body orgasms. I actually teach a full class on that called the orgasm experience that teaches you how to access this point. But it's back here, and it's very a huge close cluster of nerves. It's also very close to the anus with this little bitty wall here. And so it's very sensitive. Some say that it is the most sensitive. So you'll hear it called maybe the cul-de-sac or the posterior fornix. That's that area back here. You kind of you have to really lift your uterus up if you have a uterus. And if you don't, then it might be easier to access. It also depends on how your hysterectomy was performed, if they damaged those nerves at that point as well. Then your cervix here is also part of the intersexual parts, and it's often confused with this deep spot orgasm, and they're very different areas. So most people, when you feel any sensation on the cervix, it's actually painful. So we're going to talk about those other kinds of orgasms that you can have in addition to the ones we just talked about. So you can have clitoral, you can have vaginal with the G-spot, the anterior fornix, the posterior fornix. Some people feel an orgasm with that cervical tissue. Most people find it very uncomfortable. Now, the nipple tissue is very similar to the vulvar tissue, and it actually activates the same region of the brain as stimulating the clitoris or inside the vagina. And it's the same sensory cortex. So you can also have orgasms from kissing because your lips are also packed with nerve endings and are also mucous membranes that stimulate that same sensory cortex. What you didn't know is that many people can have skingasms, especially people who maybe have not feeling in part of their body, or you take away one of your senses. So if you blindfold or put earphones in or hold your hands in handcuffs, when you take one of those sensations away, it activates other parts of your body. So your skin can be very, very sensitive, and some people can have orgasms, especially back of the neck, ears, those very sensitive areas that have a lot of nerve endings. And I'm going to take all the questions and chats at the end so that I can go through this and so that we can finish on time, because I want to make sure that we really appreciate your time for being here. So a coregasm is an exercise-induced orgasms. Endorphins are produced during exercise that are very similar to orgasm, and in some people, it's strong enough to trigger an orgasm. A mindgasm is stimulated from mental activity or visual stimulation. So reading erotica can actually have an orgasm that way, or watching erotica or porn. Because women our arousal begins in the brain, where men arousal begins with genital blood flow. So it's very different for women. So that's why it's visualization and reading and experiencing past experiences in your mind can be very sexy and really activate those triggers. Then you have anal orgasms. There are more nerve endings in the first 2 inches of the anal canal than there are in the back 2/3 of the vagina. It's also, considered taboo, so it adds to the eroticism. And the thin wall between the vaginal canal and the rectum allows for that posterior fornix to be accessed through, that vaginal wall as well. Then for men, because we don't want to leave our men out, I think most of you on here are women, and we're focusing on the female body today. However, the men often take my classes as well so that they can learn about their women. So for men, in the penis, there's 4,000 nerve endings in the head of the penis. And this is the orgasm that we most likely think of when we talk to men or when men experience orgasm. And orgasm and ejaculation are actually two separate functions. However, we tend to think of them happening together in men. But ejaculation is separate, and men can have an orgasm from the prostate. It's the G spot of the man. It's called the P spot. It's the same tissue. So when we're in utero, before gender is developed and really apparent, the tissue is the same. And then when the gender becomes apparent, it splits off into the G spot or the prostate. In fact, many sexual medicine doctors refer to the G spot as the female prostate. I don't know why we wouldn't refer to the prostate as the male G spot, because most doctors are men in that way. So a prostate orgasm is considered about 10 times stronger than a penile orgasm for men. So that is access going through the rectum in, again, about 2 to 3 inches towards the top belly button. And you do that, come hither, and you can hit the prostate. It's a walnut size organ, that's just gland, I should say, that's in there that builds up with the prostatic fluid. Then there are urethral orgasms. Yes, the pee hole. That's also very surrounded by all those clitoral nerves. And so your urethra would be right in here. So for men and women, the urethra is, because it's surrounded on 3 sides by the clitoris, it can be very sensual. For a long time, I thought, before I knew about my body, I was rubbing more around my urethra and thought that that was the most pleasurable instead of on my clitoris. If you haven't ever taken a mirror, take a mirror down there and check things out. When the urethra is stimulated, it engorges with blood, and then it helps to trigger in women the Skene's gland, which produce the prostatic fluid in women, which is the stuff of female ejaculation. And then men can also have urethral orgasms through sounding, which is inserting a sound into the urethra. You can also, of course, have a blended orgasm, which is any combination of these. So those are the orgasms that you should know, that much more than just the typical of what we've been taught and what you've been taught. There's, any combination of those can be an amazing way to try new things.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lish. Thank you, Tiffany.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you. Welcome to Your Own University. Watch out for the email for next month's masterclass with another incredible teacher, and hopefully Tiffany will be back. We'll plan her next class. Talk to you all soon.
Thank you, Lisha. Thank you, Tiffany. Have a great day, everyone. Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you. Great. Looking forward to the next.
Join us at Your Own University, where you continue to discover the ultimate you. Like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. You're not going to want to miss a bit of this.